pleasure and the privilege of welcoming Rabbi Friedman for a talk titled, What Has Love Got to Do with It? The Chassidic Secrets to a Happy Relationship. Rabbi Friedman is a world-renowned author. He's a world-renowned lecturer. His first book, Doesn't Anyone Blush Anymore, is currently in its 5th printing. And he recently, I just heard, published a Hebrew book that's in his 3rd printing. He is really one of the most sought-after rabbis, and he has earned the distinction of being YouTube's most popular rabbi. Please do check him out after the talk. And in his wonderfully engaging style, he has the unique ability to simplify complex issues and bring listeners an enhanced sense of serenity and moral clarity. Friends, without further ado, Rabbi Friedman.
Wow, that was an introduction, or that was a speech?
I could keep going, Rabbi.
Thank you very much. So what has love got to do with it? It's a very good question, because too many relationships, marriages, are solely based on love. And we're finding out the hard way that this doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Love is not solid enough. It is not strong enough to carry a relationship. It can sweeten a relationship, for sure, but it can't carry a relationship. So we have to disabuse ourselves of this faith in love, because it's become something of an idol. We worship love. We depend on love. We kill for love. We die for love. It's out of control, and it's not meant to be. Anytime you have a problem in a relationship, well, it's because there's not enough love. More love will solve everything. It's not working. It's not even meant to work. So here's how we should define love before we apply it to marriage even. What exactly is love? Ask the average person, in the Western world anyway. Love is the most important thing in life, true or false? Way too many people will say that it's true, but it's not correct. Love is not important. That's the wrong adjective. Love is not important. Love is the feelings you should have for those who are important in your life. If someone is important in your life, you ought to love him. If you don't love him, they're still important in your life. Like the brother you can't stand. If you love somebody who is not important in your life, they're still not important. This idea that if I love you, you become important, that's a nasty idea. My love makes you important. And when I stop loving you, you become disposable? Nasty. The brother you don't love is still more important in your life than the dog that you do love. Is that not true? And yet the average child growing up in the Western world will tell you that his dog is more important to him because he loves his dog and he doesn't love his brother. This is a Hollywood invention. It sells, but it's not true to life. So this young couple come and they ask me if I would do their marriage, their wedding. And they say, we're very much in love and we want to get married. I said, you're in love? They said, yes. I said, then there's no point in getting married. Then what are you getting married for? You marry for love. You already have the love. I don't even know what it means to marry for love. Are you marrying someone you don't love in order to get love? You already love. So why are you getting married? Well, we want to make a commitment. A commitment to what? To stay married even when you don't love each other? You have no intentions of doing that. So, love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage? No, they don't. So, what exactly is the role of love in marriage? When you get married, your spouse becomes the most important person in your life. More important than your parents, more important than your children. Such a person you ought to love. It's only right that the feelings, the emotions, the spirit in which you conduct this very important relationship should be one of love. But even if the love is not there, the relationship is valid on its own, and it doesn't need to be embellished, and it doesn't need to be supported by love. It supports the love, not the other way around. So if you become mine, that is extremely significant. Will I love that? I will love that because I love everything that is mine, beginning with my life. Why do I love life? Because it's mine. Your life, I'm not so in love with. So, what has love got to do with it? Well, if it's not based on love, then what is it based on? What's missing in this whole mix, in this recipe, is intimacy. It is painfully absent in even some of the best marriages. It's functional, it's pleasant, it's useful, helpful, but it's not intimate. And that can't be. It's unnatural. So imagine if a man would say to a woman, I love you for your money, and I want to marry you for your money. You have lots of money. I very much love money, so I think it's a great match. I want to marry you for your money. Most people, maybe there'll be some exceptions, but most people would find that offensive. You agree? What's offensive about it? Is there anything wrong with money? Nothing wrong with having money. So why is it wrong to marry someone for their money? So on the spur of the moment, most people say, well, what's going to happen when the money's gone? Who says the money is going to be gone? Why are you so pessimistic? But is that what makes it offensive? Yeah, there's a possibility the money will disappear. What makes it offensive is that it's not true. He doesn't love her for the money. He doesn't love her. He loves the money. I want to marry you for your money. I don't want to marry you. I just want the money. So it is a very thinly disguised request for money. It's almost like saying, if this world was a perfect world, you would just give me the money. No strings attached. But, the world is not perfect, and the only way for me to get that money is by marrying you. Do I want to marry you? No, I want to marry the money. Why is love any better? If I say I want to marry you for love, it's the same thing. You're marrying me for love, and what's going to happen when the love is gone? Which is very likely. If you're really objective about it, marrying for money makes more sense. At least money is useful. They both have the same problem. They're both flawed in the same way. I am marrying something about you. I'm not marrying you. Whether it's money or love, it's not you. A person who says, I want to marry you for love because I'm in love, because I love love, because I want love, they're actually saying, I don't really want to be married to you. I just want the love. I know one of the only ways I'm going to get that love is by marrying you. But then I'm marrying the love, not you. So a man actually said to me, I love everything about my wife. Everything. I said, that's interesting because I just spoke to your wife and she wants a divorce. So what's going on here? You love everything about your wife, but do you love her? He says, I love everything about her. I wasn't asking about the things about her. Do you love her? He says, what does that mean? What's her when you take all things away? So what he's literally saying is, I am married to many parts of her. I just don't know why I need her. And what is her if you take the parts away? It's what people mean when they say, why can't you accept me for who I am? When I do good, you like me. What I'm talented at, you like. What I'm good at, you like. What you like about me, you like. What about me? Do you really want me in your life? So listen to what happens, and it's very obvious and very, very noticeable. You get married for love, and then all of a sudden, you're hearing an opinion from your spouse. Whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't marry you for your opinion. I married you for the love. So just keep the love coming. The rest I don't want to hear about. It's not my problem. I married you for love, and you're giving me your opinion, you're giving me your personality, you're giving me your feelings and your concerns and your shtick. I didn't marry you for that. Just the love. It's terrible. And then they actually call it unconditional love, which is such an oxymoron. Unconditional love. Love is the biggest condition of them all. We are related. We can live in the same house. We can share our lives and stay married if you love me. That's unconditional. Love is the condition, and it's the biggest condition of them all. I love you when I love you. Without that, what are you doing in my house? So, what is intimacy? Intimacy means I feel connected, attached, and joined to you, not to any one part of you, but to the you behind all those parts. So I can be married to you, bonded to you, and disagree with every other part of you. I can be uncomfortable with everything I see in you, but I want you to be in my life. Because I'm marrying you and not the things I can get from you. So here's the breakdown. Money is a thing. You don't love things. That's unnatural. You don't love a tree. You can enjoy a tree. You can value the tree. You can't love a tree. Because you can't love objects. You love only someone who can love you back. Or not. Can love you back. Not must. You can't marry your clone or your shadow. You have to marry someone who could not love you, but does, chooses to. So money is an object. You can't love an object. Love is an object, in a sense. It's not a tangible object, but it's an object because you can have it one day and lose it the next day. You can have more, you can have less. You can be good at it, you can be poor at it. The same, of course, is true with sex. Sex is a thing. You have it, you do it, you don't, you're good at it, you're not good at it. It's an it. You cannot base a relationship on things. The Mishnah says, the sages said it a long time ago, a relationship based on something will not last. A relationship based on no thing will last forever. Intimacy means a connection between two people, past and beyond all things. The you connecting to the me. So having common interests, having things in common. You both love tennis. You both love pina colada. That's not a basis for love. It's not a basis for marriage. You're not loving each other. You share a love for tennis. So you enjoy each other. You benefit from each other because you can play tennis together. But where is your love for tennis? Of course, it's helpful, it's comfortable, it feels secure when you marry someone who shares many things in common with you. But that's not the love, and that's not the marriage, and it's certainly not the intimacy. So, in very simple language, anytime you love someone because of something, that's pornography. Pornography means objectifying, seeing a person as an object, or seeing the objects about the person. So the guy who says, I love everything about my wife, yeah, he loves the fact that she has money. He loves that she's good looking. He loves that she has a good sense of humor. He even loves her mother. Nice family, good people. So he is married and in love with many things, just not her. And the proof of it is she feels alone in the world. She's married, and you love everything about her, and she feels alone in the world. And it's a horrible feeling. It's a terrible feeling that no one should suffer from. The reason she feels alone is because the her is not joined or merged with the him. They share many things in common. They love doing things together. They love each other's company. It's not intimate. It hasn't gone past things. That's what we need to regain. Our grandparents married each other. There was very few things to love about each other. People didn't have anything. So you married the person and you bonded and you became one. And the thought of divorce was unthinkable. Did they agree on all things? They agreed on no things. They bickered and argued about everything, but they had no doubts about each other. We're doing the opposite. We're finding so many things to love, we just don't bond with the person. So the punchline of it is like a bumper sticker on a car. Nothing about your wife is more important than your wife. Nothing you get from your husband is more important than your husband. That's a marriage. That's intimacy. And if you have that kind of bond with somebody, of course you're going to love it. What's not to love? That's the essay in brief. There's a lot more to talk about, men and women, male and female. So let's open it up to some conversation. What's on people's mind?
So let me begin with a few questions, and I'm going to ask everybody or anybody who has a question to please share it in the chat so that I can then share it with Rabbi Friedman, and we'll try to get a bit more interactive a little later. So Rabbi Friedman, if I understood the essence of what you were saying, it's basically that we've become too transactional, maybe too utilitarian, too we approach love we approach relationships as we would approach, where we're the same hat or the same lens as we do in a business setting, where actually the successful business person is very capable or eminently capable at putting values on different, measuring, evaluating cost benefit analysis, et cetera, which we then bring into relationship setting. So I guess the first question is, but isn't that natural? In other words, if a relationship starts with conditionalism, that is to say, one wouldn't ever expect somebody to begin a relationship with no strings attached, that begins with no thing about the person that they're attracted to, because what attracts them to the other typically begins with the different things. And it's those things that combined create some form of attraction, which develops into a relationship, which at some point we're then told one needs to relinquish in order to advance or transcend or deepen or transition into the relationship that you're discussing. Personally, and while I speak about this often, the question that I have a hard time answering often is, okay, I get the theory, but how is it done? How is it actually done? If there were certain things about the individual that made me attracted to them and basically contributed to my decision to love them in their entirety, I know I need to. I know that's the aim, that's the goal, that's the destination. But how do I do that? Fundamentally, I'm a person who lives in a world which is objectifies everything. So how can I make that transition? That's the first question I wanted to bring up.
Very good. It's a very good getting right to the heart of it. You do not marry because you love. That's the Hollywood distortion. You marry because you think marriage is a wonderful thing. Because You heard that that's the way it's supposed to be. Because God wants us to be married. If you think about it, when did it start? Who invented marriage? Where was it invented? In France? I don't think so. It's a purely divine idea. No human being would ever come up with a plan like that. Pick one person who you're going to live with for the rest of your life. It's a godly idea. God says to the Jewish people, I need you to be mine. That's a marriage. Marriage means living a certain lifestyle that is very noble, that is uplifting, that turns us into real human beings, and so on and so forth. In other words, we're enamored with love, with marriage. We're in love with marriage. 9-year-old little girls want to be married. They just don't like boys. So it's not because they love somebody, it's because they love marriage. They love the whole idea. We'll get married, I'll be the mommy, you'll be the daddy, we'll have babies. It's a magnificent idea. Superhuman. Then you got to find somebody to do it with, and that's where the difficulties begin. Because it's very hard to do it by yourself. But marriage stands on its own. If you're not in love with marriage, don't do it. If a man says to a woman, you know, I'm not really into the marriage thing, I've tried to avoid it, but you are so incredible. Wow, I'll marry you. Don't do it. You're not that incredible. And it's not fair for the man to put all that weight on you. If the only reason he's getting married against his better judgment is because you're fantastic, well, then you have to be fantastic every day for the rest of your life. Otherwise, he doesn't really want to be married. Marriage has to get independence. It has to stand on its own. It's become a victim to love. I love you. I love you. Okay, then we have to get married. What is that, some kind of a punishment for being in love? Marriage is a consequence of love? No, that's not correct. No one loves another person enough to want to spend the rest of their life with them. Unless the idea of spending the rest of your life with someone other than you is already a precious idea. If it's not, don't do it. Don't get married because you love someone. Get married if you love marriage. So, again, love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage? Not exactly. Not exactly. So,
But
go ahead, man.
again, so I want to try to take this is an incredibly powerful idea. And I think it's a very resonant idea. And I think intuitively, it is the aspiration of everyone who gets married. They're enamored by the concept of the exclusivity of you're my one and only from now and forever. That idea of complete and utter one togetherness / oneness, becoming one extension, one unit, one organism. But how is it done? And maybe it's too technical a question for to abstract an idea, but I think something the viewers or something that personally I would love to hear more about is what does that look like in practical terms? It's saying basically you need to learn a new paradigm. You need to be, in a sense, you need to you need new hardware. You need a new way of being, because in the so-called Western world we live in, which is incredibly transactional, I don't know of any other area where that type of notion exists. In fact, the one other relationship one could say is unconditional is family. And sadly, over the past decades, we've seen such a deterioration in family, such that a lot of people, probably the most oft questioned issue that I'm asked to speak about in confidence is how to deal with family, actually even more so than marriage. It's such a tenuous relationship when it was such a natural relationship in earlier times. And that's possibly a result of the transactionalism that has seeped into a place where it ought not to be. So now one is evaluating or applying cost-benefit analysis to their relationship with their mother or their father or their siblings or their children. So putting that aside, because it's simply an example for this idea of how entrenched the notion of transactionalism has become, the question is, I'd love to be more as concrete as possible about this. So how does one relinquish or transition from that paradigm to another? Let's say one is in a relationship and what drew them to the person was X, Y, and Z. And today they no longer feel like X, Y, and Z is manifest or exists. If it's money, the money is lost. If it's good personality, one discovered that actually the whole thing was a sham and a farce. And in fact, the individual does not have a likable personality behind closed doors. If it was a cool, calm, and collected, the person's a wreck. A person who looks stable suffers from, let's say, deep emotional, psychological stress and trauma. If you thought they were beautiful, they no longer, either they've aged or they no longer look as beautiful or no longer look beautiful to you. Whatever the conditionalism that drew you to them, it doesn't exist. Now what? The relation, how does a person fall in love with the essence of the individual if they're not in love with that essence?
Mm-hmm. So just before we get started on that, you are my one and only. My one and only what? My one and only love? You're not a nice person. You limit your love to one person?
A particular type, this type of love, yes.
So what is that called? See, if we call every good feeling love, then we're going to get very confused. It's like the child who says, "I love Mickey Mouse, I love my dinosaur toys, and I love my mommy." That's not healthy, and it's not necessarily in that order. So, what does love mean? The feeling you have towards Mickey Mouse or towards candy, and it's the same for your mother? Something confusing. So, my one and only what? Here's the thing. Let me reword your question in a very different context. To be truly joined and merged with another person beyond all things, is that natural? Or is it natural to be attracted to things and to want things going beyond things? That's not a familiar experience. It's not a natural experience. That's too spiritual. So the question simply is, do I have the capacity, the natural capacity and inclination to an intimate relationship beyond things? Or is that just a nice poetic sentiment? So let's examine it a little closer. In the act of creation, God says on the sixth day, after creating Adam, God says, "It is not good to be alone. I'll create you a helpmate." It's not good to be alone? Then why is everybody demanding to be left alone? Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And then we complain that we're lonely. We've never been such a, we've never had such a lonely generation. There's a beautiful line from a popular song from back in the 80s. I think it was the 80s. It's a song by Billy Joel, a nice Jewish boy. The word, the line that really is meaningful. He's describing a scene of people sitting in a bar. And he says in one of the lines, they are sharing a drink they call loneliness, but it's better than drinking alone. That is really insightful. There is loneliness and there is aloneness. When you're feeling lonely, you go to a bar, you go to a party, and you share your loneliness. And you're not lonely. But when you come home from the bar, then you realize loneliness is not your problem. You're alone. You can't share that. So when God said it is not good to be alone, what was he describing? He's creating the world. He's setting down the laws of nature. One of the laws of nature is it's not good to be alone. It's our nature. Divinely ordained, divinely applied, we get it from God, but it is our nature. It's our nature to breathe. It's our nature to depend on food and water. It's our nature to hate aloneness because it's not good. If a person were completely self-sufficient, loved being alone, because self-sufficient to the point where I don't need anybody for anything. What's wrong with that? What's not good about that? That's kind of a perfect human being. Now here's the beauty of it. It really is magnificently romantic. Perfect is admirable. But what is it good for? If a person were truly perfect, is that good? It's convenient. If I can fry my own eggs, if I can make my own cholent, very convenient. What's good about it? Goodness doesn't begin until there is someone else in your life. If you want to get really mystical about it, when God said it is not good to be alone, he was talking about himself. Who is more perfect than God? And who was more alone than God? So he creates the world and he creates a human being. And the first thing he says to the human being is, I created you because it's not good to be alone. So what do I need you for? I need you to take away the aloneness. How do you take away the aloneness? By being you. To not be alone, I need someone who is not me. So if I agree with everything about you, then I'm still alone. Nothing new has been added. I'm still alone. I always loved pina colada, and you love pina colada. So what's new? The only thing that's new is that you love things I don't love. You want things I don't want. You have needs I never heard of. Now I am married to someone. What is that someone? Not me. You don't marry your sister, you don't marry your twin, you don't marry your shadow, you don't marry your clone. God created angels on the Monday of creation and on the Thursday of creation, but he was still alone. Because an angel is not someone, an angel is something. There's the angel of kindness, there's the angel of justice, there's the angel of healing, the angel of compassion. Those are things, things that God loves. But he's still alone. God stopped being alone when he created a human being with free choice. Free choice. We can love him back or we can hate him back. Now God is not alone anymore. So what is it that we reject in our spouse? What is it that we object to in our spouse? The things we're not familiar with, the things that don't feel comfortable. And that's exactly what we should be loving. That's what we merge with. Not my things and your things. It's not like my people will contact your people and we'll work out a deal. No, no, no. The me that isn't you wants the you that isn't me. Because it's terrible to be alone. And the only way you stop being alone is when you marry a stranger. With your mother and father, you're still alone. With your children, you're still alone. Just more of yourself. Only a marriage and this crazy idea that men should marry women and women should marry men. You know from the start, you're so different. You will never be the same. And that's exactly what you're looking for. You want to marry someone who is not you. Do we have a capacity for that? Is that asking too much? Is that too idealistic? No, it is our deepest, most compelling need. But how do we actually do it? So let's get practical. You gotta meet people before you can marry. You don't get married blindly. It's against the Torah. You must see each other before you agree to get married. Why? Not because you need an excuse to marry, not because you have to find something about the person that is so beautiful and so wonderful and so pleasurable. No. You need to meet each other and get a feeling for the chemistry that exists between you in order to minimize the friction. You want to meet somebody who doesn't rub you the wrong way. You want to meet somebody with the things, all the features, all the aspects, all the details, all the things about that person you find comfortable, you find it acceptable, you find it perfectly okay. Not you're overwhelmed by it, not you're in awe of it, because then you're going to marry it. So, are you looking for the most beautiful woman in town? That's a beauty contest. That's not a marriage. But you have to like what she looks like. Because if you dislike, there's a problem. So you don't have to be convinced that she is the most beautiful, but you have to feel very comfortable with her looks. You have to be comfortable with her presence, with her personality, with her vibration. with the way she talks, with the way she thinks, with the way she laughs, everything. Here's a big part of our problem. Dating has become a relationship. If you're dating someone, it means that you're in a deep relationship. It's almost a marriage. It's like a trial marriage. It's not supposed to be. You're supposed to remain strangers until you decide to be married. Because until you're married, you are strangers. So when you are going out meeting somebody with the thought of marriage, don't create a relationship like an alternative marriage. There's no relationship until you're married. So you don't have to make a good impression. You don't have to go out of your way to trick him into marrying you. You're simply going to meet a person to see if there's anything that would prevent you from being married to this person. But you're marrying the person, none of the things you're going to check out. So you don't fall in love with things. You just make sure that there are no things that would get in the way because they disturb you. Anything. If there's a freckle that you don't like and it disturbs you, don't marry her. Don't marry him. You have to get married completely comfortable with all the things so that they don't distract you from the who. We got too focused on the things. We end up marrying things.
Let me ask you if I could jump in, because if I could summarize there or try to understand the essence of what you're saying is that at the outset, there's a problem with the foundation. The foundation is not conditionalism, as I put it before. That foundation must not be that I see this, that, and the other, and altogether, it's such a wonderful package. I love the package. Okay, let's get married. Because then in fact, there's a real difficult, then you have a hard time moving from there to the unconditional. But what you are saying is you need to ensure that there's the correct conditions. Basically, it's more a matter of making sure there's nothing that bothers you than making sure that everything about them is you're crazy about everything about them.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a tough question. Here's a tough question. What if someone married someone? The circumstances are irrelevant. It could be anything. It could be someone who didn't have the right mindset. It could be someone who didn't notice certain things, but wakes up one day in that relationship and begins to be deeply disturbed about things. So the very things you spoke about, and I thought your example of a freckle was actually really fascinating, because what you're saying is it doesn't even matter what it is. It doesn't have to be something grand or something sweeping. It could be a freckle. It could be a small matter. But if that bothers you, if you're walking in with something that's alienating and agitating and irritating, don't do it. What happens if you're now in a relationship and you discover that there's one thing or number of things? How does one shut off the part in them that's either repulsed or irritated, especially if some of those things, you mentioned the freckle. Again, I want to say I find that interesting because it's one of those things that's it's always visible. So for someone who's bothered by the freckle, it's not as if they saw it once, it bothered them, and they can move on. Every time they interact with the person, they see it again. And if that's something that's bothering them, that becomes almost like a focal point of irritation on an ongoing, regular basis. So how does one, if one is already in the relationship, deal with things that are irritating, things that are really disturbing?
Okay. So in marriage counseling, when I hear the people's complaints about each other, and I speak to them separately and never together, they don't have to hear those complaints again. They've heard them plenty. So I
Right.
speak to them individually. So I say, like, for example, to the husband, I say to the husband, you know, you're right. Your wife is so annoying. She's got really annoying habits. You want to marry her now? You want to marry her? Yes or no? Do you want to be married to her? Because you're not married to her. Your relationship is shallow and based on things, and there are things to not like about her. Do you want to move beyond things and get married to her? Because she's a really good woman. Or, no, you'd prefer somebody without a freckle. Even after years of being married and children in the house, you'd rather find somebody without a freckle. If you can't answer that question, you don't need marriage counseling. You need some other kind of help. Okay. So it's really very, very doable. Most people will say in marriage counseling, most people would say after a list of complaints, oh, don't get me wrong, she's a very good woman. Yeah, but that's not who you're married to. Like the first time I heard this, I came out here on Shlichus in Minnesota. And I was straight out of yeshiva, naive. And this man says to me, because I was a rabbi, even though he was old enough to be my father, he says, that's it, I'm getting divorced. I'm getting divorced. I don't need this. So, like a naive boy, I said, well, if you don't need this, then just get rid of this. Why are you divorcing her? Obviously, in his mind, she was a this, and he doesn't need this. So he's going to divorce her and try some of that or those. He was never married to her. He was married to a this. That's an object. So it is um, very exciting, actually, for a married couple who have been living on the edge of things to suddenly discover, we never really married each other. It's a beautiful thing to see it happen. Like when they say after complaining, they say, so do you think we need to get divorced? I say, actually, I think you should try getting married.
Mm.
You'd make a nice couple. But you never married each other. Now that you're mature, now that you're a little older and you have children, maybe you should marry each other. There are people who repeat their vows. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Renewing.
Renewing their vows. It's a good idea, but not the same vows you made before. It's a good idea to move on, to move deeper.
But that man, the man who was married, he does enough of this, and she was this. Let's say he was married for 20 years or 25 years. So I would have thought, and if I were to pose that question to individuals, I would have thought that there's a high chance that they would actually say, yeah, I need a bit of that. In other words, someone who's stuck in the this versus that mentality might be excited by the concept initially, might say, wow, that's brilliant, but they will possibly, even maybe likely tell you, you summed it up beautifully, Rabbi. You got me. I'm a this guy. In other words, okay, guilty is charged. I'm a guy who objectifies everything. That's what I need. So first of all, the assumption here is that he's ready to get to marry the her. But first of all, why would he do that if he's coming from a different reality where he's not interested in the her? So, and how do you encourage someone or guide someone towards that place? But more importantly, perhaps, and again, I may be going back to the original question. How does a guy like that move from one mindset to the next? Let's say he says, I'm ready to do it. Now what?
Okay. So if he really is such a superficial person and he wants to try some of that instead of some of this, then he should get divorced. He's just not marriageable.
Hmm.
Most people, when they complain about their marriage, are asking for something more.
Hmm.
They're disappointed. They thought the marriage would enhance their life, would give them something substantial to come home to. But they're so hung up on the things, they don't allow it to happen. And of course, they blame the other. She's not the thing I need. The thing you need for what? For a meaningful existence. Well, it turns out you're not letting it be a meaningful existence because you keep focusing on stuff. So most people who would come to a rabbi, certainly for marriage advice, is looking for something deeper, something better, something greater. He's not just looking for another experience, because then you don't ask. You just go. Now here's a now that we mention it. If I'm not in love with love, what should I be in love with? What should we be in awe of? We should be in awe of the word home. It's been stripped of its meaning, it's been robbed, it's been abused. Home is a much more powerful word than love. When you go home, is it because that's where you're going to get love? No, no, no. It's much more than that. Much more than that. So let's see if we can define what home means. Coming home means you have returned to the place where you belong. You belong. Do they love you there? Sometimes, but you belong there. And what you do there in your home, that's what you really should be doing. Everything else is questionable. Even your career. Is that the career you should have? I don't know. If it's working, fine. But at home, oh, that's what you should be doing. A young woman got married in a very traditional, she decided to live a traditional life after being a hippie in the 60s and 70s. And I talked to her a few years into the marriage. I say, how is everything? She says, all the same. I had problems before, I got problems now, nothing's changed. I said, one thing did change. The problems you had before, no one should ever have. Those were problems you were better off without. The problems you have now, those are the problems you ought to have. How do you make your husband happy? How do you raise healthy children? How do you educate a moral, give a moral education to a child? Oh, these are good problems. These are the problems we're supposed to have. We don't regret them. It's what makes us human. So going home means you're going to the one place where you really belong. And you're going to be doing the things that you really, really should be doing. And with whom? With the one person who is meant for you. Can you imagine? That's a triple blessing. I am where I belong. I'm doing what I ought to be doing, and I'm doing it with the person that is meant for me. If that's not heaven, I don't know what is. I mean, literally, that is heaven. If you come home to that kind of a home, you know what heaven means. What is heaven? When the soul goes back to where it came from and is back to being a soul. He's where he belongs. That's heaven. What's hell? You walk in the front door of your home and you feel totally out of place. That is hell. It's very important. The way you greet each other, husband and wife, when you've been apart for a big part of the day, and then you come back together, you're home and your husband walks in the front door. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you showing? Where were you? You're putting him through hell. If you dread coming home to your home, that is literally hell. So home means not only the place you belong, the feeling is there's no place else I'd rather be. That's what home feels like. And what you do at home, well, there's nothing else you'd rather do. And who are you with in that home? There's no one else you'd rather be with. You put those three things together. That is so much more powerful than love. And by the way, how could you not love that? So to make it all very, very powerful, remember the raid in Entebbe when the Israeli soldiers came in and saved the hostages and eliminated the terrorists. They had been hostages for a long time. They were so relieved when the soldiers came. What did the soldiers say after they eliminated the terrorists? What did they say to the hostages? What would be an appropriate thing to say? The most appropriate thing. We came to save you because we love you. Wrong. Instinctively, these young soldiers said the perfect thing. The perfect thing. They said, let's go home. What's love got to do with it? It's so much more powerful. So, do we really want to be married? Do we really want to have a home? Oh boy, do we. Much more than we want love. And then the love comes because how could you not love that? So, what will it take for every family to feel at home in their home? This is not like going beyond the letter of the law. This is fundamental. A home has to be a home. Otherwise, nothing will work. Nothing. I was sitting with a family over dinner. They have a 10-year-old boy, and the boy did something or said something at the table which was inappropriate. I remember what it was. And the parents chastised him, corrected him. It wasn't anything horrific. It was just not, it wasn't the proper etiquette. Afterwards, I said to the father, the dining room table, the kitchen table, have to be absolutely safe zones. A child should never have to think or suspect that sitting at the table he's going to get criticized or rebuked. Never, never. A table has to be a safe place. A place where you have no concerns, no worries, no anxieties. Actually, the home should be that way. But if you want to start making the home a safe place, a real home, start with the table. When you're eating together, nothing should disturb that. Okay, one final thought. I'll move on to other questions. The final thought is this. A 50-year-old man comes home to his 50-year-old wife, and he says, "We hired a new secretary at work. She's gorgeous." Is the wife upset? Is it disturbing? Did he say something wrong? Everybody in America, anyway, says, yes. Don't say something like that to your wife. That's what I mean. He shouldn't have said it. Well, he shouldn't have noticed that she's gorgeous. He shouldn't notice? Well, I don't know what to say. The problem is she's 50 years old. And the lifestyle, the secular lifestyle that is considered success and beautiful, and it don't get any better than this, in that lifestyle, this 50-year-old woman is competing with a 22-year-old secretary every day of their marriage. Never gets better. She's 50 years old and she has to compete with a 22-year-old. She's 40, has to compete with a 22-year-old. She's 30, has to compete with a 22-year-old. This is cruel and unusual punishment. The anxiety every day, every time the husband walks out the door. So the only way for the wife to be secure is if she knows that her husband is blind and cannot see who is gorgeous and who is not. Because if he sees something gorgeous, their marriage is on the rocks. How is it supposed to be? How can the wife hear the husband say, "We hired a new secretary and she's absolutely gorgeous and she's a good girl," and not be threatened by it? That's the goal. That's what marriage means. That's what intimacy means. We are bonded. Some people are gorgeous. What does it have to do with us? Because he didn't marry her thinking that she is the most gorgeous and will never be outdone in the beauty department. He never thought that. He wasn't looking for the beauty. He was looking for a pleasant, enjoyable, compatible human being with whom he can become one. And you only do that with one. And you never need anybody else. But if you're looking for things, there will always be somebody with more things, better things. And so you live a life of insecurity, a life of anxiety. It's horrible. You have to be on medication for your anxiety. So we can very easily have a real home that comes from a real intimate bond between husband and wife, which carries over to the children. We want it, we need it desperately, we complain when it's not there, and then we go back to talking about things. We don't need to do that. We are perfectly capable of getting past things and really bonding with each other. You can't do that with everybody. You can love everybody. If you're a really nice person, you do love everybody. So, what's unique about your wife or your husband? That's you. That's yours. That's where you live. Everything else is just a visit.
Beautiful. Well, we definitely have a lot to unpack and to consider, and hopefully, more importantly, to apply. I do know the hour is late. And so, first of all, friends, if you don't mind sharing some positive feedback in the chat that I can share with Rabbi Friedman a little later on. And on behalf of everyone who attended and those who are attending online via Facebook, we want to extend a very heartfelt debt of gratitude to you, Rabbi Friedman, for your powerful and hopefully transformative insights. Thank you so much, and looking forward to connecting and to learning from you and with you again, hopefully very, very soon. Warmest regards, and dear friends, once again, if you don't mind sharing a few words so that I could later on pass it on to Rabbi Friedman. Do look up Rabbi Friedman online on YouTube. He also has fantastic books, bestsellers in multiple languages. Please make a point of looking him up so that you can learn from him and continue, not just to look him up, but to look up to him. Thank you.
Is anybody interested in asking a question that we can share? Something that's on everybody's mind?
I think it's
because there is a recent survey that actually discovered that what keeps couples together is not love. Love is often the cause for separation. What keeps couples together, and this came as a surprise to everybody except traditional people, what keeps couples together is mutual respect. Who would have thought? Surprise, surprise. Mutual respect keeps couples together. And the reason, what is it you respect? After 10 years, 20 years of marriage, what do you respect? Talents? You've gotten over that. Yeah, my husband is brilliant. I know. Yeah, my wife is the best, the greatest. What do you respect? You can't respect stuff. You can't respect things. You respect the person, the personhood. You respect the independence, the individuality. You come to respect the things that you don't share in common. Like a man who is in awe of his wife because he doesn't understand how you can nurture children, how you can give birth with all that pain and then want to do it again. He's in awe. That's not a thing. He's in awe of her. One of the things we have to learn, men have to be in awe of women. We've lost that. It's not that we never had it. In the olden days, by the cowboys and in the Wild West, if a woman walked in, you stood up and you took your hat off. There was an awe of women. A very appropriate and well-deserved awe. And that's for a woman who you're not married to. The woman you're married to, you should be in awe. And the wife has to be in awe of the husband. It's the only way. But as a teenager, in our fantasy world, we thought fear, awe, respect is just a necessary evil. But if we can outgrow that and just have love, just love, that's like living on chocolate. You're going to die from it.
Mm.
You can't live on chocolate. So the mutual respect, the awe that way, and the same is true with God, by the way. If all you want is love, and God is love, and everything is love, you're going to die from this like you're overdosing on chocolate. If there's no reverence, if there's no awe of God, if there's no appreciation for God's vast eternal plan, you just love Him because He loves you. This is not a healthy diet. So, in a marriage, the love is beautiful, the love is enjoyable. It's not what makes the marriage a marriage. The mutual respect after 10 years, that's something special. Instead of the familiarity breeding contempt, it enhanced your respect for each other. You got it right. That's it. You're doing it. So bring back the dignity. Don't be at your worst behavior at home and at your best behavior at work. Be at your best behavior at home, because that's where it counts the most. The rewards are infinite.
Yasher koach. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Rabbi. And I can see a lot of friends here tonight. And I'd like to welcome you, and also, dear friends, we have we have a question here. If the respect is based on goodness, integrity, is that a thing?
No, that's not a thing. That's a value. It's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at your appreciation of those qualities, that could be a thing. Because you can feel it, you can not feel it, you can feel it more, you can feel it less, you can understand it, you can appreciate it or not. But the value itself, when you do appreciate it, that's not a thing. That's the quality of a person.
Beautiful.